Welcome back to NYSE TV Live. Well, revenue sharing is officially coming to the college athletics world. And earlier this month, a judge signed off on a settlement that will result in schools being able to pay athletes directly. Differs from the name, image, and likeness policies put in place back in 2021, in which athletes could only earn compensation from outside parties. Well, the new rules start on July 1st, with an annual cap for colleges expected to begin at about $20.5 million. And joining me now with more is Kenge Stevenson. He's the president of 329 Services. Kenge, great to have you on the show, joining us from Dallas this morning. We appreciate it. And how much could this transform college sports?
Well, thanks for having me on, Kristen. It's always a pleasure being on with you. I think that the transformation started, like you mentioned, back in 2021 with the evolution institution of NIL. And so if you look at that, so that's sort of like the appetizer. They brought that out to the table, judged the public response, judged how it went, and by all accounts, it was a success. Now what you have is the main course, which is they're allowed to finally start giving direct revenue to the players. And so, like you mentioned, it's going to be about $20.5 million for schools, for the Power Four schools. And this is the first time they're going to be able to take that money that they use from ticket sales, licensing, video games, any revenue that they can generate, they can give it directly to the players. So they're essentially going into full-fledged professional sports, which I think is a positive thing.
Wow. So how much of the money do you think goes to the biggest programs, especially football and traditionally men's basketball?
Great question. A lot of people are going to be asking that. I think it's going to fall along the lines of what the settlement was agreed upon. Settlement for back pay, which is going to be put on pause because of an appeal. So the back pay that's supposed to go to the old players, there was going to go 75% towards the football, 15% to men's basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and then 5% to other. It makes sense because the majority of revenue is going to come from those football and men's basketball revenue. And so what you're going to see is each school is going to judge on a case-by-case basis. For some schools, you have like Nebraska volleyball, which is very popular. They're definitely going to dive into that money pool and give those potential athletes some money because it makes sense for them to make revenue. But overall, the majority of bulk of schools are going to choose to spend their money on football first and then men's basketball because that's where they can see the biggest return.
Yeah. How does this change recruiting? And do you think it does ultimately widen the gap between major conferences and smaller ones?
Absolutely, Christian. Well, the thing is, recruiting has always been there's always been a wide gap before they were even paying players. The difference in facilities and travel accommodations and crowd atmosphere always created a huge gap from the haves and the have-nots. I think this will widen it even further, and this will pretty much take any sentiment out of the players wanting to go to school. So a player could grow up being a Michigan or Illinois fan all their life, but if somebody comes from outside those schools with some money, that money's going to talk. And so I think that you're still going to have the power schools, the Georgias, the Texases, the Oklahomas. They're going to be at the top just because paying players, the more money you can pay, the better talent you can get. So I think, it's going to be a wide gap between the haves and have-nots, but nothing we haven't already seen.
Interesting. So what are some other, perhaps maybe unintended changes, Kenge, that you think could come as a result of this?
Yeah, I think some of the unintended changes will be that some of the sports that aren't generating revenue are going to go by the wayside. So you're going to have, some gymnastics programs, swimming, things that aren't bringing in revenue. Schools are going to take that money that's being used on those sports and marshal those resources to get the talent for the sports like men's basketball and football that can generate revenue. And I think another effect will be is that schools will start to lean into capitalism and start to get lean with their athletic departments. They're going to look at every way that they can generate revenue and get money to get the high talent coaches and the high talent players in so that they can generate revenue. So I think schools, the veil of amateurism has been ripped off, and I think schools are really going to lean into the capitalism and make some tough, hard-nosed decisions.
Interesting. What do you think are some potential challenges, Kenge, facing the NCAA once these new rules do go into effect?
So the NCAA basically immediately formed the College Sports Commission, which is going to be the oversight committee. It's headed up by Brian Seeley, who's a former MLB exec. And so they're going to have to review these deals, like you mentioned, starting on July 1st. And so you're going to have an avalanche of deals coming right out the gate. And so they're going to be flooded with NIL deals, direct revenue deals, and they're going to have to kind of frame how this is going to go on the fly. I think because it wasn't addressed for so long, they're going to get bombarded with everything at once because there's a logjam of the players not being paid. And so it's just they're going to have to make a lot of stuff up on the fly and just see how it goes. It's going to be trial by error. So, but I think the College Sports Commission is going to play the front seat, and the NCAA is going to take a back seat to the enforcement.
Interesting. So while pro sports do have free agency, I know college sports have the transfer portal. So with these new rules, do you expect we'll ever see a salary cap like we do in the NFL and the NBA?
Yes, I think I mentioned earlier about the appetizer and the entree. I think the dessert will be once the players and student athletes can shed that student athlete label and be labeled as employees. And there's a lot of litigation that will go into that. But essentially, being labeled as employees will allow the athletes to form a union and collectively bargain. The difference between the professional sports and what is college now is that the players aren't able to collectively bargain and receive a whole host of benefits that traditional sports leagues do. Also, they're receiving a significant less share of the revenue than traditional sports leagues do. So I think that moving forward, that's going to be it.
Kenge Stevenson, president of 329 Services, joining us from Dallas. Kenge, great to see you. Thanks again.
Thanks, Kristen.